My friend, go for it.
Are we hot? We're live?
We're live.
All right. Well, I, Gerard Michaels, am excited to be here for the inaugural, the premiere, the very first episode of Antagonistic America. Like I said, I'm Gerard Michaels, and the voice of God you're hearing over there in the audio booth is producer extraordinaire Ming.
Hello, everybody. That doesn't sound very godlike.
That was very well produced, Ming. Way to hit your cues. So what do we got going on here? What is Antagonistic America, all right? Well, first of all, I'm a comedian, and I said to myself, I will never, under any circumstance, have a podcast. I'll just never do it. It's been done. It's been done. It's been overdone. It's like Donald Trump's steak. Well done. If you don't believe me that everybody on Earth has a podcast, try coming up with a name for a new podcast. As a thought exercise, anybody listening to this, go ahead, get in front of your Google tube and just Google any name of a podcast. I guarantee you it's been done. So I said I would never do this. I would never do this. People have been asking me for years to do a podcast. I'd always be a guest on other people's podcasts. I've done Compound Media. I've done Barstool. You guys that have been following me for years know that. But I never did my own podcast because, I just felt it was the next evolution. Like, it's just too cliche almost, Ming. It's like, every girl that worked at Hooters that I've ever met, they said they swore to God they'd never strip, and then you follow their Instagram 3-4 years later, and there they are. But they're not stripping. They're a bartender at a strip club. And if you think that that's a sexist joke instead of an anecdotal truth acquired from years of lived experience, this is not going to be the podcast for you. So I'm very excited to be coming to you live from not live. This is recorded live here at the Jersey Shore at a shared universe podcast studio. And what can you expect out of this podcast? And why did I break my rule and create a podcast? One, because a lot of you asked for it. You guys got sick of my 45 tab stories on Instagram, and my on TikTok, my 17-part TikToks, and Facebook decided they were going to give me a 30-day content ban. So you know what? I've got to go somewhere else. They cannot deplatform me. I am replatforming myself. And we're going to talk about the hard things that nobody seems willing to talk about here. But it's also not going to be my niche to, that's what they say when you start a podcast, you do any sort of content, man. They're like, you got to have a niche. You got to have a niche. No, this isn't DIY cabinet making. This is not. My niche is going to be truth, honesty, and questions about the world as I see it. Really, why I started this podcast, to be brutally honest, is I can't be funny anymore. I am not funny anymore. People that have been watching my special that just came out, you should check it out, Vimeo On Demand. Vimeo really came through after Amazon screwed me. Vimeo On Demand, Gerard DGAF, Gerard Don't Give a Fuck. You guys can check that special out for $3.99. Very, very affordable, poverty priced. Use your Stimmy check. But I was getting messages from people, well-meaning messages, and they were saying, dude, I almost forgot you were funny because I have been posting so much serious stuff for so long. And the truth of the matter is, I think that these are very, very serious times, and it's unsettling to me how, what's the word I want to use? It's unsettling to me how laissez-faire everybody is about what I find to be just the extreme moment that we're in. On the one hand, you all deserve to be commended. This is something that I never hear on the news. This is something I never hear from our politicians or our lecturing celebrities. The American people and people worldwide, the global community, voluntarily sacrificed so much for the well-being of strangers. They gave up their rights. They gave up their freedom. They gave up their livelihoods, all to save people that they'll never meet in their lives. And they've never been commended even once for that. But knowing government the way that I know it, having been in government, having been in politics, I knew, many of you think I'm cynical, many of you think I'm crazy, but I knew for a fact, once we gave these rights away, they were never going to come back. Once we gave these people power, they never voluntarily handed back. And that's where we find ourselves almost 14 months after the pandemic started, the crisis, became public. We find ourselves still, not to be hyperbolic, we find ourselves glorified political hostages, where your life is the freedoms that you have, your ability to life, liberty, and prosperity are completely dependent on your geography right now. If you are living in Texas, if you are living in Florida, if you were living in Georgia, if you were living in New York, California, Michigan, your rights as an American are completely and totally different. Your ability to earn a living is completely and totally different. So with that in mind, it becomes harder and harder for me to make dick jokes. So really, this is a cathartic thing for me. And maybe some of you out there are thinking through the same problems that I'm thinking through. Maybe some of you out there have the same questions that I have, that the powerful just never seem to answer, they ignore. And then maybe by getting this off my rather sizable chest, my 60-inch chest that bench presses 500 pounds. That was a little Alex Jonesy. But if maybe by getting this off the chest, we can begin to get back to a place where dialogue and disagreement are not seen as acts of war. Differences of opinion are not cancelable. We can get back to a place of trust, and I think that's the big word here is trust. We have lost, or we have been conditioned to lose all trust in our fellow man. And as somebody that has traveled this country for 17 years, I've been north, south, east, west. I've had red hot nights in blue states, and I've gotten blue balls in red states. Americans, red, white, black, green, yellow, anything in between. If you're some of those colors, you should probably get checked by a doctor. But everybody is genuinely, basically a good person. I'm telling you, the people I've met coast to coast are good people. They just want to live their lives. They just want to be respected. They just want to be allowed to leave their kids a better world than they came in. They want to enjoy themselves. They want to be left alone. They are not bad people, and they do not have bad intentions. I know that to some people listening to this, especially in Gen Z, that sounds asinine. That sounds probably naive to your Gen Z ears. You've been conditioned to look at every single person as a suspect. Every single person since you were a child was going to spike your Halloween candy. They were going to kidnap you. They were going to take away your life and your liberty from you. And that's why you can't go anywhere with strangers unless the stranger is brought to you by almighty computer on an app, in which case you'll get into anybody's car at any time at night. Because almighty app, almighty computer tells you it's okay. You don't trust humans, you trust technology, and that's fine. I understand that. I'm not Ted Kaczynski. I'm not some anti-technology person. Technology has done amazing things for what we've been able to use technology for, but technology is a tool. And in many ways, I think this younger generation has been conditioned to think that technology is God. Technology, is this deity. AI is this deity that they can just trust, blindly. Again, you would never get into a stranger's car at night drunk, a group of 4 girls. But in Asbury Park, there's just a whole bunch of Toyotas that line up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and every drunk girl just jumps into the first one. Are you my Uber? You could be on the parkway before that guy says no, and be in big time trouble. And now they've exacerbated that with COVID. Now we all wear masks, and we're not going to get into the validity of that. But what that did psychologically is it forced us to view every single human we interact with as a potential threat. You know, and I think that that's just a horrible, horrible, horrible development that's going to take many years to overcome. You should meet people with open arms. You should meet people and embrace them and anticipate the best out of them. Again, that's not naive. You should always be prepared for the worst. You know, I'm a gold medalist in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've done, you know, I've grappled at a world-class level. I've boxed. You know, I go to the range all the time. I am a prepared guy, right? And I understand at my size it may be a little bit easier to be a little more open-minded when meeting new people. But at the same time, you know, part of my job as a comedian is to walk into cities I've never been and go and meet people that I've never met before. And you get the energy you give in a lot of ways. Ming, am I rambling right now, Ming? Am I rambling?
Not at all. I travel a lot as well.
Yeah.
And, I go to these weird cities, but I'm trusting of everybody, and nothing's happened, thank God.
As of yet.
Hopefully I didn't jinx myself, but you know, I'm also Asian. There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Oh, stop Asian hate.
But I'm pretty non-threatening. So,
Yeah.
But I mean, so are old Asian women. So who knows, man?
Speaking of, just a sidebar on that, and this is going to circle back to the total gaslighting that we're getting from the powers that be. The Democratic Party tweeted out a picture of FDR yesterday, and it was something about they called him a socialist, and all he did was end the Great Depression. And one, Democrats are just stumping for socialism now. Okay, straight up. Two, that's a pretty bold thing to tweet out 3 tweets after Stop Asian Hate. You know, like, have we just lost our minds? Are we not teaching history in this country?
We lost our minds a long time ago. I think that's why you're podcasting right now.
That's
right?
why I'm podcasting. We've lost our minds. If it's the end of days, I said I'd never do it, but here we are. Yeah, for those that don't know, probably again Gen Z, there were these things called internment camps where FDR took anybody who was any sort of looked Asian at all. We were at war with Japan. And he could have taken a Korean, Chinese, people who hated Japan. He would have taken Olivia Wilde and thrown her in a camp. You know, now, because he's a Democrat, they wouldn't call them concentration camps. It was called an internment camp. Or, you know, it wasn't kids in cages. It was super fun time down at the border or whatever it's called now. But, yeah, so 3 tweets after Stop Asian Hate, we get... What was so wrong with this FDR guy? I don't get it. You guys don't like this guy? He's great. Yeah, I don't. It's asinine to me. We'll get into that more in future episodes in depth. But for those that are new, for those that don't know who I am, let me give you a little backstory on me. Welcome to the weird, wacky, chaotic world that is Gerard Michaels. I started out as an athlete. That was a few Popeye's chicken sandwiches ago, but I was a professional athlete. I was a 3-time All-American in college. I was actually the 2006 National Player of the Year. A very interesting stat, by the way, Ming. I know you're a sports fan. I was only the 2nd catcher ever in the history of the NCAA to win National Player of the Year in baseball. The other, Jason Varitek.
Wow, world champion Jason Varitek.
World champion
yes.
Jason Varitek. Smushed-faced Alex Rodriguez, Jason Varitek.
I'll always love him for that. Always love him for that.
I was actually teammates in the minor leagues in my last season in the minor leagues with Kevin Millar, and he called Jason Varitek the greatest, human being he ever played with. So that's pretty high company. Baseball America made the huge mistake of ranking me the 2nd best prospect from New Jersey in our draft class. Number 1 was a guy named Rick Porcello. He went on to win a Cy Young Award. That's the best pitcher in Major League Baseball and is still pitching in Major League Baseball today. The number 3 prospect was a guy named Todd Frazier, who was a multiple-time All-Star in the Major Leagues and won a home run derby. I was the number 2 prospect, and I spend my Saturday nights telling jokes at VFW clubs. So, I guess the moral of that story, kids, is say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and your dreams will come true. And also, Baseball America needs to get way better at their job. That's that.
So Hulk Hogan had it right, you're telling me.
Yeah, well, with some things, not with all things. Yeah, but the Hulkamaniacs. Now, sidebar on that as well. One of the worst days of my childhood, Ming, was the day Hulk Hogan turned heel. The day I'm gonna out myself here. People that know me know my good friend Al Snow. Calls me Mark Gerard for a reason. In the wrestling business, a Mark is a super fan. I am a wrestling Mark. This is gonna take everything that I have to say. Take all the commentary that I have about these intricate geopolitics that I'm going to be talking about in this podcast, and wash it through the lens of you're being lectured at by a huge wrestling fan. So, take everything with a grain of salt. That's why I'm here to ask more questions than I am to solve them. But I can still remember watching that and the Outsiders coming out and Hall and Nash. And I never liked Razor Ramon. He was always a bad guy. And then Hogan turns heel, and he talks about, what was that? Was that at the Beach Bash? Was that at the Bash at the Beach, if I remember correctly? Hogan turns heel, and I got to tell you. And then, you know what? It ended up being the greatest thing that ever happened in wrestling. The NWO came out, and it changed everything about wrestling. And that was the catalyst for the Attitude Era of the WWF at the time, now the WWE. There is no Stone Cold Steve Austin. There is no The Rock Dwayne Johnson. He was Rocky Maivia, and they had him walking around with a pineapple at that time. It was very campy, and this changed everything, and it became like a street fight. And I got to tell you, for a young boy growing up, this was Days of Our Lives. This was my soap opera. This was a soap opera with muscle-bound cats. It was awesome. But getting back to what we're talking about, so after I played 5 years of minor league baseball, and then after I got done with baseball, I got into politics, and I actually to go back to my political journey, I went into college as a pretty liberal guy. I was very anti-George Bush. I was very anti no blood for oil. Did not like most college kids. I did not like the Republican Party. I thought they were the bad guys. I thought Donald Cheney and Rumsfeld. I'm sorry, Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld were two of the most evil people on earth. I had that one right, and I would actually protest. But then in college, the performative feminism really started turning me off. I'll be honest, to the left side, the left wing of the Democratic Party, and we would get lectures in the athletic department. It was almost like a Family Guy episode. We would sit, every guy and every girl would sit, one and then the other, and the woman who was there to lecture would be like, statistics say one of these two men will rape you. And just like the Family Guy episode, I looked and I was like, that's not going to be me. And then the guy next to me was like, I don't know, maybe. Like as a joke. That's a joke that can never get made today, my God. And slowly but surely, it was the type of people that were attracted to that mindset really turned me off to it. And I said, man, if these are Democrats, I'm probably not a Democrat. So if you're not a Democrat, you must be a Republican. And I helped out with Scott Supprell's, while I was still playing ball, I helped out with Scott Supprell's congressional campaign. I did some stumping for him, and then he did really well, and that got me hooked up with the GOP, and then they got me a job in Chris Christie's cabinet as in OCR, way down the food chain. Way down the food chain in constituent relations. I did some writing, I did some speech writing, I did some out front stuff. But really, man, the more I was around that, they were pushing me hard. I was 26, 27 years old. I just finished up a professional sports career, looked great in a suit. They wanted me to run for state senate. The state GOP was really behind me. And, you know, after about a year, I realized, man, I am not a Republican. Like, I don't agree with what we're doing here at all. And there was one story I've told on TikTok, but there was one time that just like this is everything I ever needed to know about politics in America. Really. They let me sit in on some caucus meetings in the state senate when they were trying to get me to run. So in the caucus meeting, for people that don't know, the caucus room is where everybody from one particular party or even a subsect of a party comes together and they discuss the bills that are going to be voted on that day, and they come up with a game plan of how they're going to vote, which is the antithesis of representative government if you really think of it just off that, because it's like that person should be representing their jurisdiction that voted them in. They shouldn't just be one more member of a gang that's going to vote en masse. But it's not the way it works. So they get together, and whoever the majority leader is, whether it's the minority leader or the majority leader, depending on, you know, who has more control of the House at the time, they'll lead the agenda and they'll say, okay, these are the 4 bills we're voting on today, and this is how we're going to vote. And there was one vote. There was a bipartisan bill. Bipartisan means both the Democrats and the Republicans had a sponsor on the bill. It was 2 former teachers, one black woman, Democrat from Patterson, if I remember correctly, and one white woman, Republican from Wayne area, somewhere in North Jersey. And the bill was anti-bullying. There had just been a kid who got bullied in school and committed suicide. It was an awful, awful story. So they came together, and it checked all the boxes. You know, one white woman, one black woman, both former teachers, bipartisan bill. But this was really the beginning of critical race theory, social stratification, and you know, what I believe to be the degradation of of merit-based society. It was a Marxist bill, meaning there were social stratifications to this, all right? First of all, it essentially made bullying a hate crime, all right? And the punitive damages were ridiculous. The person who was bullied, their family can sue the bully's family, take their house, massive punitive damages. But the wild thing about it was, by the you know, what I call the victim totem pole of critical race theory, a black kid could not bully a white kid. A gay kid could not bully a straight kid. The person had to be within, you know, like I said, these social stratifications. So only a straight white male kid was capable of bullying another straight white male kid. It was asinine. And this woman sitting in the caucus room was ripped to shreds for 10 minutes in the Republican caucus. Everybody's like, this is the dumbest bill in the history of bills. How could you think of something so stupid? How could you co-author something so ridiculous? And she just gets ripped to shreds. So then the minority leader sets up and says, okay, we are all in agreement. This bill is awful. Which one of you is going to stand in front of News 12 New Jersey and say, I am pro-bullying? The bill passed almost unanimously, Ming. After 15 minutes of them shredding this woman, the bill passes almost unanimously. And now, in fairness, well, first, that became like the basis for a federal guidelines on bullying. It became that bill. I think it was 2010, that bill. I don't remember it exactly. In my blog, I'll write about it more in depth, but you got to pay for that. That's not free. You're going to have to check me out on Substack, all right? But I'll write about it more in depth. But it became the basis for like the bullying, I forget what it was called, like Bullying Bill of Rights or something like that. And the way politics really work, this is how the sausage really gets made. In future bills, they just put in pork that essentially took the teeth out of that law, and they said, all right, well, you can't take somebody else's house if your 7-year-old bullies another 7-year-old. All right? Like, so they declawed it eventually as pork and other bills. But I will never forget that. I will never forget sitting in there, being young and idealistic, and thinking that we were actually helping people and representing the nobility of being a representative, following in the footsteps of Washington and Jefferson and Adams and these great revolutionary men. And really what it was, all right, well, this is stupid, but I'm not going to take the heat from the media. So let's just pass the bill and then we'll fix it later. And that turned me off to everything. That turned me off to the entire system. I said, this is outrageous. Another thing that happened was I knew, Chris Christie and Steve Sweeney were attacking each other, at each other's throats every day in the media over the teachers union. And then I go down to Atlantic City to the what's it called? The Knife and Fork, the Fork and Knife. It's a real good steakhouse there at the end of the boardwalk. And who is sitting in the back room away from everybody, enjoying a steak and a bottle of wine together, laughing it up like they're best friends? Chris Christie and Steve Sweeney. Republican and Democrat. They've got neighbors throwing dog shit over their yards at each other. They've got family members breaking up. They've got Republicans and Democrats fighting each other like the Hatfields and McCoys. Meanwhile, here they are, after rousing all that rabble, enjoying a $300 meal together in Atlantic City. And that was really all I needed to know, man. That was really all I needed to know. And that was at the state level. And then a lot of the people that I worked with ended up going federal, and I kept in touch with them. And apparently it is 10,000 times worse at the federal level than it is at the state level. So that brings us to kind of where we are in our country today. And I left politics altogether for a very lucrative job in pharmaceutical sales. I decided being a drug dealer was a far more noble profession than being a governmental aide and an aspiring politician. And, made my money, lost it all in bad business ventures, and resurfaced as a comedian. And I've been very, very lucky to tour the country with some phenomenal comics. I was very, very lucky to open for guys like, Todd Barry, Tom Green, Kevin Hart, tour with Carolanne, MilJavac, tour with Andrew Kahn, tour with Catfish, Cooley. And, now I've accumulated the social media following thanks to you great people where you guys give me a little bit of a voice in this crazy world. And that brings us to this podcast here at a shared universe where we're going to talk about, look, you folks that have been following me, that little rant and ramble there, that was for the folks that don't know me. But for most of you that do know me, who have been following me for years, you know that I will never bullshit you. I may not be right. You can disagree with me. I do not pick a side because I think sides are stupid. I am on the side of logical consistency, intellectual integrity, and, for lack of a better term, true justice. Okay? I think everybody who has a profit incentive in their worldview is sus. Anybody who has any sort of profit incentive in their worldview needs to be taken to the woodshed. If you don't just get to sell me your worldview and I just have to shut up and take it. Sorry, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you don't just get to cry and whine and bitch and moan and then we shut up and give you all of our money. All right? If you're going to be the savior you claim to be, do you understand the audacity of somebody like a Bernie Sanders, like an Ocasio-Cortez, where they say to you, give me all your money. And money just represents hours of your life. You get money from the hard-working hours of your life, right? So give me all of the hours of your life, and I will fix everything. I will fix the weather if you give me all your money. All right, prove it. Like that's at some point you can't just say that shit. Show the math. And then you can't turn around and say, well, math is racist. You know, you can't say asking these questions is white supremacist. Nah, homie. I'm not offering the money. You're trying to take it. Explain why I should give it to you. And that's my worldview. I guess I'm libertarian. I'm not a huge fan of the Libertarian Party, but I'm also not a fan of authority. I'm an iconoclastic. I'm a dick. I know that. I get that. But anybody who wants power, anybody who desires power, to me, has to explain every step of the way why they deserve to have it and why they deserve to keep it. We have given away so much of our personal autonomy. We have given away so much of our lives. We have given away so much of our freedom, so much of our assets, so much of our hard-earned money. These people need to explain themselves. And enough already with the good intentions bullshit. That old cliche, the parable, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't care how good this bill was supposed to be. I don't care how good this idea was supposed to be. Actions are what matters. Okay? Every communist you talk to, well, this is gonna be the greatest utopia of all time. It's gonna be incredible. Well, every single time it's been tried up to this point, it's been nothing but famine and genocide. So now it's incumbent upon you to prove otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Like these people, they just want to be listened to. It's asinine. And no, I am not that. Now, as soon as I go after the left, people on the right are immediately like, yes, he's on our side. No, you guys fuck up too, man. I am no Trump apologist. Do I think Trump is overhated? Yes, I do. But I think he brought it all on himself. He fought fights that weren't necessary to fight. And for all of his bluster, for all of his tough guy antics, when it came time to actually show a little chutzpah, he let an army of Starbucks baristas take the country by force. So, enough. And then you guys, again, another thing with Republicans drives me out of my mind, immigration. Everybody, you complain, and rightly so, complain about these far left wingers hating the country, these communists trying to turn America communist. Why don't they just move to a communist country? I agree. But then you have people who are dying to come into this country. You have people that are literally right now at this moment laying in shit because they want to be a part of our nation, because they want to be a part of what we have. They believe in the American dream, and we mock them. Where's AOC? Where's AOC? How come she's not crying at the border? It's callous. The nativist bullshit, it's got to go. Nationalism, we'll talk about that in the third episode of this. Whether it's white nationalism, black nationalism, which yes is a thing, and yes it is a danger, all right? And just any sort of nationalism whatsoever, which is all fascism is, by the way. All a Nazi is, all these commies and Antifa, punch a Nazi. All a Nazi is, all a fascist is a commie with a heavy sprinkle of nationalism. Communism is a global ideology. Fascism is communism on a national scale. That's just to oversimplify a very complex topic. That's basically what it is. All right? So, no, I'm not on your side. I'm not. I am always open to changing my mind also. That's another thing that drives people out of their minds. You may look back at videos from 5 years ago. I'll tell you one thing. One thing I very notably changed my mind on. I used to think that the trade deficit that we had with China was good for America. I was very supply side. It was a very Reagan Republican trickle down economic policy, supply side economic policy, where I thought, what the hell? We're not going to have slave labor here in America. So if China's going to have slave labor and they're going to sell their products, we can't compete in manufacturing. I think it's a good thing that, you know, my shirt, my underwear costs $5 at Walmart. And if we put tariffs, people would have to pay $7 for their underwear, and that would be a terrible thing. And that was my thinking at the time. I have since changed my mind. I have been shown information that has completely 180'd my idea on that. And I did not vote for Trump the first time. I thought the trade war with China was stupid, and I'm wrong. He was right, as much as that pains me to say. 93%, Ming, I don't know if you know this, 93% of all of our pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceuticals that we consume, all right, they're developed here in America, but they are produced in China and India. So if China really wanted us gone, if China really wanted us 86th, it would take one bad batch of Oxycontin and the entire eastern seaboard would be gone. You know, that to me is a clear and present danger. There's no amount of savings in the world that is worth that, giving up that much of your personal security to a foreign entity, right? So I was wrong. I was wrong. And so again, some people can see that as flip-flopping. I see that as evolution of thought. I don't know everything. Hell, I don't know anything, folks. What I do know is that I am here to ask hard questions of people. Eventually in this podcast, we're gonna have guests. If you guys email us, or if you hit me up on TikTok, what's up, everybody on TikTok? Hit me up on TikTok. You guys can hit me up on Facebook, on Instagram. You send me your questions. You send me requests for people that you want on the podcast. Send me the questions you'd like me to ask them. I'm here to be a voice for you. This is a podcast for the working man. This is and woman. Sorry, and or whatever, however you identify. But I do want to be a proxy for you. What my ultimate goal in this is to be more entertaining than I was here in this first hour. But introductions are never really entertaining. So come back to episode 2, 3, and 4. It's going to take us a little bit to get our rhythm here. I promise you, I am an entertaining cat. Give it a shot. All right. But also what I would like to do is to be able to distill down some high-level concepts from people that I really, really appreciate. People like, Jordan Peterson, Brett Weinstein, James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, Thomas Sowell, some really, really high-level intellectual thinkers, and try to distill down the thoughts that they're processing in a way that common people like myself can understand them, and in a methodology that's going to be interesting enough for you to keep paying attention. We need to understand what is happening in our world. We need to understand why it's happening, and we need to start asking some real serious questions from the people in charge. Because the 10,000-foot view I'm seeing as a guy who's studied history extensively is not great. We're entering a period of about to be hyperinflation. If you look at what the Fed has done, they printed more money in this what's called QE5, quantitative easing 5. They printed more money in the last 11 months than in the entire history of our country combined. That is a bad thing. And, we don't know if it's a bad thing. Something called modern monetary theory, MMT, they think that that's just the future. So the future is always borrowing from the future. There's who are you borrowing from? There is no such thing as real actual debt, because what are they going to do? Not give it to you? They're just going to let the countries fail and not get their money back. So essentially these modern monetary theorists have turned our lives into one giant Ponzi scheme. We are going to be constantly borrowing from the future to pay for today. And I guess the trick there is don't be the last one. Don't be the one caught with the bag. But it would be pretty funny if we acted like our government. Wouldn't it, Ming, if we just ran up all our credit cards? We just ran our credit cards completely up. And then when they were like, nah, hey, it's time to pay, you're like, nah, just raise my credit limit 3 times and I'll pay what I owe. Can you imagine? You know what the difference is, Ming? Aircraft carriers. We don't have aircraft carriers. So, yeah. So I'm going to try to distill down these really tough topics. Again, I appreciate you guys listening to this first episode. We had to get through. We had to get through this first episode to explain what the podcast is. But there's going to be a couple episodes. I'm going to post 2 or 3 at a time so that, you can get to the good stuff. And I'm going to be distilling down some really, really tough topics. We're going to be talking about white supremacy. We're going to be talking about black nationalism, the Nation of Islam. We're going to be talking about what I believe to be globalist communism, by any other term that has essentially, we've lost a war without even know that we're fighting it. We've given up freedoms that we're never going to get back. There's some pretty interesting theories that I'm going to put forward. Ooh, conspiracy. Oh, conspiracy theories. Man, I can't wait for us to go back to the times when these conspiracy theories were wrong. I'm old enough to remember when people were making fun of 2 weeks to flatten the curve, saying, what's next? We're going to need vaccine passports. Hello, here we are 1 year later. Wow. In 1 year, it took us 12 months to be like, oh yeah, of course I need a vaccine passport. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I need to show the government my papers? What are we doing? The freedoms we've given up. It's nuts. It's crazy. Am I crazy? This new normal's insane. It's insane. You have people actually promoting this. You have people actually saying, Zuby had an unbelievable comment. Zuby's a rapper from the UK who has kind of been like the tip of the spear in the entertainment industry of the counter woke movement. And he had a great line. He said, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer at all, by the way, people. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but this is a great line where he said, I cannot imagine a world where perfectly healthy people have to inject themselves with a foreign substance for their government to give them back their basic rights. And those people that don't think that's a good thing are considered crazy. It's so true. It's an insane reality that we're living in. This is almost, to me, like, Ming, you're a big comic book guy. This is like a Lex Luthor plot to Batman. 20 years ago, what we're living in here, Bill Gates was a Superman bad guy, right? Like, this is...
Lex Luthor he couldn't even come up with this.
No,
he's not evil enough to come up with this.
It's insane. It is. This is like a Ra's al Ghul. This is League of Shadows, population control. And as crazy as that sounds, there are people that have actually voiced that opinion in public. And that's one of the, I guess, cool would be the wrong word, but one of the interesting parts about the total domination from the far left over the last year is now they feel so comfortable in their control and in their power, they're starting to say the quiet parts out loud. They're starting to say things like, well, we only need 3 or 4 of these in a decade, and we can get climate control under wraps. And it's like, whoa, what did you just say? Did you just say you need to put the entire population on house arrest every 3 years to get climate change under what? Like, come on, hold on here, man. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna try to keep every episode to 60 minutes. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you listening. If you can, if you made it this far, why don't you go a little further? Listen to our next couple episodes. And check out my special if you haven't checked it out. It's the non-essential comedy special. You can check it out on Vimeo on demand. I am Gerard Michaels. Over in the audio booth, that is Ming. He waved. You're just going to have to trust me. And you're going to be able to watch this. Where are they going to be able to find this podcast, Ming?
It'll be on iTunes. It'll be on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. It's live on your TikTok. It'll be everywhere.
It'll be everywhere, baby. All right. Love y'all. Remember what I always say, man. Love who you are. Love where you're from. We'll see you soon.